Good morning to you. A pleasure to see you this morning.
Nice to see you too.
Firstly, I think we should obviously talk about what you're doing at the moment, because you're being a real advocate for making sure that businesses really can make sure that we're being more progressive in the way we think about women, particularly at board level. This is something which has become a real passion for you, hasn't it, over the last couple of years?
Yes, so a few years ago I founded Women in Hospitality, Travel and Leisure, WiHTL, or WiHTL as some people call it. And the whole interest came from a desire to find out what the hospitality, travel and leisure industry was doing to achieve the target set by the Hampton-Alexander Review of 33% of senior leadership positions occupied by women by 2020. So it started as a piece of research, and what they highlighted was that while there were some pockets of excellence and some companies doing some amazing things in the area of diversity and inclusion, in particular focusing on gender, there were many other companies that were really behind or were just simply at the beginning of their journey and needed some guidance. So the idea of creating a collaboration community actually came out of a conversation I had with the CEO of IHG, Intercontinental Hotels Group, who said to me, Thea, this is not an area where as an industry we should compete. This is an area where as an industry we must collaborate for the good of the industry. So that's where the idea came from, of bringing companies together to share, to learn from each other, to identify best practices, to amplify the impact of individual initiatives for the good of the industry as a whole. We started primarily with a focus on gender, and our thinking has evolved in many ways as more companies have come and joined the collaboration community. And now we focus on two areas of the diversity and inclusion spectrum, one being gender, which is the core of what we do, and the second one, as important as gender, is a whole discussion about race and ethnicity.
And sorry, after you, please carry on.
No, that's okay.
So if we, for people listening, where do you think we are on that curve? Because as always, you get different views on this one, don't you? But how far along the curve are we compared to other industries?
Look, it's really interesting because if you had asked me that question before the pandemic, I would have replied by saying that we were making absolutely incredible progress. You know, we publish an annual report. Since the first piece of research that I mentioned that started the whole idea of the collaboration community, we've been publishing 3 annual reports to really measure the progress that we were making as an industry, but also to showcase the great initiatives that the industry has put together as a whole in partnership. Prior to the virus outbreak, I was absolutely confident that we were on a great trajectory to achieve fantastic progress in terms of creating diverse and inclusive environments for everybody to be themselves and to bring their own self to work, as I said, with a specific focus on gender. You know, lots of companies coming together, you know, lots of people really wanting to be part of this effort, joint effort to make a difference and learn from each other. And in those areas where, you know, perhaps we were not leading, you know, learn from other industries. Now, the pandemic has significantly changed things for you know, many industries, for all of us individually, and has significantly paused, if you know, certainly slowed down, but in some cases, unfortunately, paused the focus on diversity and inclusion. So the last few months have you know, for obvious reasons, you know, people have been focusing on you know, survival and handling the crisis, and now, you know, focusing on reopening. But personally, I believe that this is the time not to pause. This is the time actually to accelerate our focus on diversity and inclusion. There is extensive research out there that demonstrates that for those who need the figures and numbers, that demonstrates that focusing on diversity at this time brings creativity, brings innovation, brings actually commercial value. So huge progress, before the pandemic started. The last 4 or 5 months have slowed down progress, but the work that we do is all about advocacy. I don't believe in beating companies or leaders up. I believe in identifying what companies are doing, which is great, identifying great initiatives, actions, behaviors, and shouting about them so that others can see that even during tough times, you can put diversity and inclusion at the core of your reopening plans.
I mean, there's a really interesting discussion privately going on, and not just privately, being actually said we had a webinar yesterday when it was brought up, when actually part of the challenge, particularly getting people back into London, interestingly, is the C-suite, who are the ones not wanting to come back fast. They're working in nice homes, they're very comfortable, they feel they're being very productive, but actually it's the younger generation who are often stuck in one-bedroom flats in London, where actually the ones who really want to get back into work. And there's almost a double narrative taking place at the moment. And I think one of the hopes coming through this will actually free up a real development, because the younger people do want to see greater diversity and inclusion. There is that generational change happening as well, isn't there? Yeah.
So look, I speak to lots of people, and I hear that it's not really easy to generalize like that. And, every one of us has had a different experience over the last few months. And I think it's important to recognize that each individual experience has been different. Some people might be comfortable, as you refer to, because they've got, comfortable settings and working environments, and are, digitally able to, carry on doing the work they used to do in offices, and that's fine. Some people have experienced loss, and they have felt anxious. They've really struggled being on furlough. Some people have really enjoyed being, on furlough and having more time with the family or the garden or whatever they might have been doing over the last few months. I think it's absolutely crucial that as an industry and as leaders, that we appreciate that everybody will have had a very different experience. Going back to the point of, women and it's been, and there is there are kind of plenty of reports now that highlight the impact of the pandemic on, in particular, on gender, and the burden of childcare, the burden of homeschooling, and trying to do a full-time job for those who have been able to continue working at the same time as managing household responsibilities and children and so forth, or caring responsibilities. So I think that yes, there are lots of people that want to come back, but I also hear challenges in our industry from HR directors who are trying to get people back, and people are anxious to be on, to come into London and to use public transportation, or as we know, a lot of customer-facing team members might be from other European countries, and actually during the pandemic have gone back to their home country. I've spoken at least yesterday, with 2 HR directors who were saying, I can't get people back into the country, either because they're saying it's not safe to travel, I don't want to get on a plane, or I can't get a cheap flight because there are not as many options as there were before. So there are, it's a huge amount of challenges that businesses have to deal.
It is. I mean, the point I'm trying to get to, the millennial generation, I think, is come out in research that 78% of millennials want to see greater diversity and inclusion. Yeah. And millennials are now hitting the 40 mark in age and come into positions of influence, and they're the ones who actually want to get back into. There is a greater generation for various reasons. They're building their careers, they're building finance, building wealth to get back to work. and building careers. So there's hopefully, I think the view is there should be a natural progression or greater focus as this younger talent is emerging now into leadership roles, want to see that greater inclusion.
Yes, and we have been speaking to a lot of students from hospitality management courses who are really eager to get into their first jobs, and or they're planning their career in our sector, and we see that there is a huge diversity within that group of future talent for our businesses, and an expectation that they will want to work in environments that reflect the university environments they have lived in. So the expectations are incredibly high, as are the expectations of customers in terms of seeing diversity not just in customer facing roles, but also throughout organizations. We've also seen that with the Black Lives Matter movement, the backlash in terms of leaders are saying, yes, we support all of this, but then actually people saying, what does your board look like? Just to show us the diversity at senior level. So there is a lot of expectations that beyond the commercial rationale and the richness of the discussions that you have when you have diverse opinions, there is a societal expectation that businesses need to reflect the diversity of their customer base.
Now, let's talk a bit about you, because you are becoming a leader advocate of this issue, which is lovely to see. And for you, and one thing that's always impressed me, because you come from very much a corporate background, it must have been quite a risk in some ways to do this. You must have seen that as quite intimidating.
I never saw this as a risk. I mean, you know my story. I've worked at Hilton as a VP of HR for Europe and Africa, and then I was the Group HR Director at Merlin Entertainments. So yes, very much I've had a corporate background throughout my life. When I left Merlin 4 years ago, and to pursue a non-executive director career, I found myself with quite a bit of time in my hands, and a desire to wanting to do something that had a purpose, something where I could make a difference. And I've always been passionate about supporting women into leadership roles in all my roles that I have had, and I just felt I call it a sense of responsibility, that I could use my connections, I could use my drive, energy and passion and determination to try and make a difference. So I've kind of thrown myself into it, seeing, can I rally the industry together towards this objective? Can I persuade people who might be skeptical about the whole gender diversity piece? And I've spoken to lots of people who have been and perhaps still are skeptical, about why gender, why focusing on women. And it's one of those things I've learned to persevere. For every rejection that you get, actually you find people who are as passionate as you are, and that gives you energy and that gives you strength, and the positive feedback I have received and I continue to receive, which is absolutely heartwarming, keeps giving me more and more energy to support the industry and try and find ways to make the industry as attractive as we possibly can to diverse talent, wherever they come from, whether they come from a hospitality management school or whether they come from other industries. This is a fantastic industry that has a lot to offer to everybody, and so I've never seen that as a risk, and typically my risk appetite is quite low, but I've always tried to achieve the right tone, and I think that I've listened a lot to what, even when I got rejections, and even when I spoke to CEOs who said, this is not for me, you go ahead, let me see what you do, and then I'll see if I join. That has been an eye-opener, because it meant that I have had to adapt my approach and the message. And I think that the message we've got now has resonated really well with lots of people, because what we're saying is we have just come up with a very new and ambitious mission, which is to make a positive difference to 5 million women and people from ethnic minorities across hospitality, travel and leisure globally by 2025. And having that advocacy at the core of what we do is what resonates with people. Bringing people together to collaborate, that's what has resonated with a lot of leaders. So there have been a few adjustments and tweaks along the way. That's part of the process of listening and learning and bringing a new, different perspective and working together. Because I don't have all the answers. This is an incredibly difficult territory, especially when you get in the broader diversity piece. There are things that you do right, there are things that you do less well, and you just learn along the way, and continue to be humble and make sure that you respond to the needs of the community.
No, I think that's right. Now, your two greatest influences, I think, is two things that made a real difference in your life. Was obviously your parents, which was lovely, because they sounded like a couple of real characters.
Yes.
Is that fair to say? Both sounded very independent.
Very, very fair to say. So, my role model has been my father, who sadly is no longer with us. But he continues to inspire me with his values, and his a strong sense of integrity and family values and work. For my father, there were two things that were really important. It was work, because that allows to provide for your family. And so my father worked until he was nearly 70. He could have retired much earlier, but he carried on. And he was very ambitious for all of us, and very proud as well of the things that we have done. My mother has always been fiercely independent. Even she's 82 now, and she's really taught us. I have a brother, an older brother, and a younger sister. And she has always pushed us and encouraged us to invest in education and find a job that we loved doing, and always talked about financial independence, so that you don't have to rely on anybody else. You can be in charge of your own destiny. And that's something which I have carried with me throughout everything that I do.
Oh, that sounds excellent. Now, I know the other great inspiration for you during this process was the Prince's Trust and the work you did with the Prince's Trust, I believe.
So the Prince's Trust has been really interesting, because that has given me a lot of confidence, actually. It was my first opportunity to work with a group of passionate women who were raising funds for the Prince's Trust to support disadvantaged young women. And that work with the Prince's Trust has given me a skill set I didn't have before, which has come very handy now, which has been, raising funds and getting people to donate for a good cause. So it was a good learning ground to raise. I remember actually raising £20,000 for the Prince's Trust by organising an afternoon tea.
Oh, really?
It was the first time that anybody had raised so much money, just organising an afternoon tea and having scones and pastries and all of that. But yes, that's hugely inspiring, because I have seen also firsthand the struggles that through no fault of their own, sometimes just really because you are born in a certain environment or in a family that is not able, for whatever reason, to give you opportunities, just assess the course of your life. So really teaches you to be very grateful for everything that we have been given, and then for everything that we have, and also a reminder for our children to make sure that they shouldn't take anything for granted either.
Oh, that's interesting. And it's an interesting one, because you said you've been talking about the process of getting the organization going, the rejections. How have you changed during this process?
How have I changed?
Yes, how have you changed?
That's an interesting question. I think in a number of ways. I've always considered myself quite determined, but I think that it's always hard to be rejected. It's always hard. You take it personally, and you think, like, I could have done better, or I didn't approach this the right way. I shouldn't have said X. I should have rephrased it in a different way. Or so that there is a lot that you learn by rejections. So fortunately, I've been able to come across lots of people who have absolutely supported what I have done and what I'm doing and what we are trying to do. So rejections, one of the lessons is that for me, it's not a reflection on me. Yes, there are things that I can do better, obviously, and I will learn that. But also, if somebody doesn't get it, it's more a reflection on them than it is a reflection on me. So you learn to, in a way, take the learnings, but the rest you shrug it off, and you become more resilient. I have been absolutely amazed by the number of people who have just offered to help and support and volunteer their time, or have some organizations are supporting us with not just individuals, but they've got teams that really believe in what we are trying to do, and that is humbling. And I always have to remind myself, you've got to be grateful and say thank you, because they don't have to do it. They don't have to help you. They do it because they believe in the cause. And but just always I always have to remind myself to say thank you. So sorry, go on.
I think, but that, talking about you, I think that's one of the reasons why I think you're obviously building it, because you are building a real momentum in the marketplace. And I think it's your behaviors that lead that. You're showing real leadership behaviors just by, good manners, but the way you listen as well, and the way you are being an advocate. But that behavioral pattern is, I think, setting a tone.
Possibly, yes. Yes, yeah. It is about, it's not just about what you say, but it is also about what you do. During the pandemic, that was quite an interesting time for me, because I've learned a huge amount. We were doing really well in terms of gaining support and gaining traction, companies that wanted to be part of this. And then, the lockdown was announced, and the first few weeks was like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? People are not going to want to focus on diversity and inclusion. They're going to be focusing on, saving jobs. And then we had the job retention scheme and the whole, furloughing people and what that meant. During the pandemic, we hosted over 45 webinars, and I felt again a bit like, when I left Merlin 4 years ago, and I felt compelled to help others. In March, when all of this started, I felt compelled to support the community in a much broader way. And so we organized lots of opportunities for people to come together and share what was going on, share how they were reacting. And they went beyond diversity and inclusion, because that was very much about survival. It was very much about, are we going to, let people go? Are we going to make people redundant now? Then the job retention scheme came into place, but lots of people lost their jobs at that point in time. But I really felt compelled to support, in particular, it was the human resources community that came together to support our employees in our industry. And, just going back to your point about, what people saw was, did I have to do it? Probably I didn't have to do it. It wasn't core for WiHTL, but it was absolutely the right thing to do. And so many more companies actually have joined the collaboration community because they heard what we were doing. And now we've got a much bigger community as a result of that. So yes, kind of doing the right thing is a leadership trait that we have seen a lot of leaders doing the right thing during the pandemic. We've seen if you like, the emergence of the empathy and the empathetic leader as a key theme. And it's really still very, refreshing to hear that as we are returning into, opening sites, opening restaurants and hotels and pubs, that a lot of people are keeping that empathy very much at the core of the way they operate.
Yeah, actually, I'm very hopeful that as we come through this, that people will be much more community focused and caring, but also that cultural and social sustainability will just grow, actually. I think there's some very promising signs.
I think it's something which is here to stay. It's been an eye-opener, people dealing with, mental health issues. Even, just feeling very anxious about the whole uncertainty that, the current environment brings. Just being stuck at home and not being able to go to work, not being able to socialize. That has made all of us really aware of some of the struggles that we have been through as individuals and others go through all the time. So I think, yesterday I was speaking to the human resources director of a large hotel chain in the UK, and she was saying, there are some good things out of this pandemic, and there are some good things in terms of the broader diversity and inclusion area. One of them is the working from home. Although not everybody has enjoyed working from home and has missed the social connection and interaction, but that the fact that we have had all to work from home for the last few months has removed all of those objections that people had before. Oh, that job can't possibly be done from home. Actually, not every single job, unless it's a customer-facing role, can be done from home. So there are some positives out of this, and there is a high level of understanding and empathy that leaders now have. We just have to make sure that it doesn't go the other way around. I heard some of the HRDs are saying that managers are making assumptions about female employees, wanting to stay on furlough, and some, yes, absolutely, but don't make an assumption. Just ask, find out what is right for you, because staying at home doesn't work for everybody. So that's quite important that we don't just trying to do the right thing, make decisions for people. It's important we listen to what the individual circumstances are.
No, absolutely. Tia, we're out of time. Look, it's been a delight talking to you today, absolute delight. And I have no doubt that you will move this forward incredibly successfully. But you're right, the sector actually has an opportunity, doesn't it, to be a real role model for other industries, I think, at this time, and really step forward and show just how it can be strong in diversity and inclusion.
There is a significant opportunity for our industry to be really leading the way in this area. This is not the time to press the pause button. This is the time actually to accelerate our efforts to be more diverse and inclusive. Absolutely.
Good. Thank you so much, Tia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.